Hi, this is Pat Barrett. I'm back, same day, uh, with my broken tree. um, I wanted to point out something I've seen on social media, articles, Substacks, podcasts, heard things on the news, on TV, which I watch a fair amount of. Um, these public intellectuals, is a good term, they're always saying DEI training. It's always going too far. It's this, it's that, and everything. Um, Back in the old days, it was called multicultural training. And then when affirmative action came in, it became training around affirmative action, which was a program Richard Nixon, the president, instituted in '69, I believe. And I was working in an employment, state employment office at that time. And we were trying to get jobs for people. And up until affirmative action came in, there were laws, 1964 Civil Rights Act and so forth, saying you couldn't discriminate against people on the basis of their race or sex, religion, etc. Nationality. But anyway, people needed to understand what was okay, what was not okay, and so forth. It was all new, and I'll get into why it was so new in a minute. But it seemed to me that these people discussing this were misreading the situation. They didn't understand what it had been like before, and I'm going to pick a year, 1970. I think give you an idea of how things were different. In 1970, the Hispanic population was 7% of the American population. Now it's 19, probably 20%. The black population around 10% at that time, 1970, but now it's about 15, maybe 14%. Things have changed a lot, as you can see. And I thought, well, gee, 400 years of slavery and then segregation, Jim Crow, and so forth. Why would they think things have changed and there's no need for this training and blah, blah, blah? What was it I understood they didn't? And I decided to look into the background of some of these people. There are two of them, very famous, David Brooks and David French. And both of them were formerly conservatives, Republicans, but they turned against MAGA. They turned against Trump. And they came out of the Republican Party. And they're very prominent figures in conversations. That's why they're called public intellectuals. And Brooks was born in 1961, French in 1969. It's not age, it's when you turned 10. And the year I'm picking as the turning point is 1970. In 1970, David Brooks was age 10. David French was only 2 years old. I, on the other hand, was 20. What was in between those two guys and me? Why, I'm an old guy, they're old guys. Why is our take on this different? And the 60s. That's the term, the 60s. That's what did it. Communist propaganda at that time, I'd say before 1970, was pointing to discrimination against African Americans and pointing out to other people, dark-skinned people in the world, saying, hey, don't side with America. Look what they do to people who look like you. That was a big deal for our State Department. Civil rights actions under Martin Luther King by the 60s. He was the leader of the movement and so forth. And TV news. We were seeing things on TV we had never seen before. Our cameras hadn't thought to cover. The civil rights movement, the marches, the beatings, the attacks by the police, the fire hoses, all of that. It turned Americans around in their attitudes towards civil rights. That's why Trump and the MAGA people talk about fake news. Because when you get to see what's going on, what happens to you? You become woke. You wake up to what's going on around you. At age 10, you become aware of the wider world. And when you turn 10, it makes a big difference. For me, in 1951, these guys, what was it, 61, 79, and they turned 10 in for David Brooks. It was, like I said, 71. And for David French, it was, he turned 10 in 1979. Long after the major victories and struggles of the civil rights movement were over. So they never saw this world. In that time, particularly since I had married into a black family, I saw new opportunities for African Americans, new laws. And as I said, I was working at 69, 70, so I was working with employment. And a lot of the people, minorities, Hispanics and blacks, Native Americans who came in, kind of expected to be discriminated against. So we said, no, not anymore, okay? And so our job was to encourage them to go ahead and apply for jobs that before had been out of reach. And I'll give a whole video on a church I attended for a long time that changed dramatically over 60 years because of affirmative action. So there were things like segregation, you know what that is, I think, job discrimination, travel restrictions. My wife was telling friends of ours who are white and Hispanic, but a lot younger than we are, they're like in their 40s and 50s, about she traveling across Texas. They couldn't stop and get gas at certain stations. They had to, or they couldn't find a place to stay because they were black. Okay, I have another horrifying story about that. A good friend had a bad experience in the 50s with that. Police harassment. You ever heard of George Floyd? No, yeah, okay. You know what I mean. The biggie, of course, is voting. Blacks could not vote. My wife's dad could not vote when he lived in Texas. When he got to Arizona, Arizona was not quite as bad. So what was it like? How can you imagine? Like I did, I worked in malls in Phoenix, lots of black people. Never saw a black person. When I was growing up in Phoenix, I didn't see black people. I asked my wife-to-be, where do you shop? Where do you shop? My dog wants to get in on the video. She said downtown. That was it. That's the only place black people could go. Her school district had a swimming pool for the students. She couldn't go to it. She was black. And it's kind of a funny thing. 2004, a movie came out called A Day Without a Mexican, and it was pretty good. California, pink fog rolls in, all the Mexicans disappear, including some people who didn't know they were Mexican. It's really, really funny, but it might give you just a little sense, with a big sense of humor thrown in, as to what it would be like to all of a sudden people you were these days you're used to seeing. I remember the first time I saw a black person up in a part of town, not the first time, but several times driving around, I'd see a black person where I never saw black people when I was growing up here. And I still had to, oh. And then driving down some of these streets, signs all over in Spanish. Never saw anything like that when I was growing up. Big change, okay? So that's a perspective. My wife and I can give you that perspective because we were there. What happens when we are gone? You have to read about it, I guess. See a movie, maybe. My wife can give you the black perspective. and she will tell you, if I can get her on one of these things, why she doesn't see that much change. Now, before I go, and I'm at 10 minutes, I want to give you 3 books to get a feel. If you want to get a real feel for the relationship between blacks and whites in this country currently, there's a book by a famous author called, her name is Isabel Wilkerson, and she wrote a book called Caste, C-A-S-T-E, fantastic book. One on the current MAGA intellectuals. MAGA intellectual? Yeah, very highly educated people, the ones working on Project 2025 that have been doing this for 40 years, trying to get America changed away from the Constitution. And another one by a guy named Stephen Tellis, T-E-L-E-S, a great legal scholar, The Rise of the Conservative Legal Movement. Really good stuff. Hey, thanks. Glad we could do this. I did this twice in one day. I'm coming back, boys. Please subscribe, like, dislike, comment. I love comments. Thank you.